a
Sure.
brief introduction on yourself and how you got into astrophysics and the things that led you here?
Uh, Sure. So my name is Yash Xavier, of course. I study in Oak Ridge International School, Gachibowli in 11th grade right now. And what got me into astrophotography was my interest that started as aircraft. So back when I was like 7, my dad took us to a Pondicherry trip, which we used to go to every year. And on one such occasion, we went to the Orient Flight School for a joyride, where I became a co-pilot and was able to fly my parents for a good 10 minutes. And that's where my interest of planes started. And from there, it just kept developing onto space, astronomy, and finally astrophotography, which is where I am right now.
Okay,
So
so like how
that's
old were you at the time when you flew when you were a co-pilot for the plane?
I was about like 6 to 7 years old at that. And it was a really amazing experience for that age.
So what exactly were you doing there? Did you just sit and watch the pilot fly it or something?
Mostly yes, but I also asked him many questions about, the systems of the plane, how everything works, because it was my first time being in the cockpit. So
Mhm.
that explains.
Okay, so like I was at the PDF about you that my dad sent, like your profile or something, and over
Hmm.
there most of the things didn't make any sense to me because I don't
Huh.
know what that word was. But one thing that I did notice was like you mentioned something about running macOS on your Lenovo computer. How did you do? How did you?
Right. So macOS, as you might know, can only run on Apple systems, which is what it was designed for. But
Yeah.
my ThinkPad, well, I was able to run a bootloader known as OpenCore, which is able to boot into macOS. And with extra configuration files, you're easily able to run Mac on a ThinkPad. Of course, it takes a lot of time. You need a lot of patience too. But
Yeah.
once you get it, it's like smooth. That was the whole process.
Why did you
So
want to
we,
do it, though? Like,
I mean, when in comparison to a
just for like
Mac,
a side project for
yeah,
fun.
it was a side project, but in comparison to a real Mac, a real Macintosh, my
Mm-hmm.
ThinkPad has a lot more, I can say features that I would love to have, but I still love macOS. Hence, why I did this project. In fact, as of now, right now, I'm on the call using my Hackintosh. It's the same machine that my dad was talking about. So,
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, tell me about how you got into physics, because like physics for most people is a really difficult subject. For me as well, I
Mhm.
mean, I struggle with it too sometimes. How do you manage to like a subject like this? Like, it's pretty difficult for most people.
Well, ever since I got into this interest of planes, aircraft, and aerospace, I really had a feeling that I wanted to dig deeper. So, of course, I did my research, went onto Google, got to know loads of terms. In fact, I was so into physics when I was about 10 years old that I knew every single part of the plane, how it works, and all of that. Like, you give me an example of how a plane's working, and I could probably predict what would happen next, kind of. And this was even before I knew that my knowledge is actually physics. So that's how I got into it.
Oh, so basically you just had this curiosity all the entire time. It wasn't
Yes.
really something that you were forced to do.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so tell me about how your school and like basically your educational journey, how did that help you with like getting into what you're into right now? Because like for most people, I don't think most people have such intricate hobbies as you do. Most people
Mhm.
have not achieved such big accomplishments at such a young age.
Mhm.
Just tell me more about that.
Well, yeah, sure. So, in fact, back when I was in DBS International Gurgaon, that was about 3 to 4 years ago, uh, I had written an article for the magazine, for DPS's own magazine, regarding the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. That was an event back in like back when I was in that school, and that writing that article for DBS International, really helped me showcase my skills to all my friends around me in school, which also helped me further on for other such events, etc.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I noticed in the PDF you mentioned that you changed three schools in three different
Right.
cities. How did that like how was your experience switching three schools and moving around so much in different cities?
Mhm.
Were you
Well,
able to adjust?
I mean, I was able to adapt. That's one thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
of course, I lived in Chennai for about 9 years, where I had made a good load of good friends, and leaving them for Gurgaon was a bit of a tussle, but I just had to adapt at that point in time. Made new friends in Gurgaon, did the same for Hyderabad, and I was just comfortable. It wasn't really a hassle per se.
So out of the three cities, which one would you say you like the most?
Definitely Hyderabad, have to say.
Oh, why? Why is that?
Well, generally speaking, the weather, and even in terms of my hobbies and interests, the weather abides. Uh, those are the two main reasons, and even my friend group. It's a lot better in Hyderabad than the other two cities.
Got it. So share something about the star curve and what are the unexplored areas in astronomy?
Unexplored areas in astronomy. Well, there are many objects that we don't even know about yet. I mean, even what we know about our universe is still quite limited. We have a limited space that we can explore with the amount of technology we have right now. So, beyond this point, it's almost impossible to get any idea of how, or rather, what objects are present, if there are any new elements, if there are any new, you know, yeah, elements and compounds over there that might change or rather alter physics uh, than uh, other than what's present on Earth. So we don't even have the scope or don't even have the technology to go above a point, and that's what I'd call the unexplored area of astronomy.
Okay, so how exactly do you manage all of your hobbies along with school?
Well, first of all, for me, it's important for to have a schedule because I have a schedule for both my schoolwork and my interests and hobbies, of course. So usually on weekends, my dad and I we go about like 100 kilometers away from the city to do astrophotography. But this is only on certain nights where the skies are clear, and of course, when I don't really have that much work from school. Hence, I'm able to manage both at the same time, including my other hobbies such as technology and aerospace.
So what does your daily routine look like?
Well, of course, the normal wake up in the morning, brush your teeth, eat your food, take a bath. And after that, it's usually studies for a long time, considering I'm in 11th grade right now. But on weekends, I would say it's a lot different because I'm not really, what do you say, limited to a timeline. I have some free movement in terms of my schedule. Hence, I'm able to add some more time for my hobbies, interests, etc.
Okay, so what are your goals? What do you want to be exactly? And um, are you preparing for JEE or like are you planning to go for like foreign universities or something?
Well, I am preparing to go abroad and planning in an engineering stream. So that would be the SAT that I'm preparing for. And hopefully that happens. Yeah, that's mostly it.
Mm-hmm. So you are from Hyderabad, right? So you probably know about Shrikant Pola. Do you find him relatable on any level? Is his journey like similar to yours?
I mean, his journey is similar to mine, I'd say, with the interest in engineering and science and all those relative. subjects. I think his journey is quite relatable to mine, and he has also been somewhat of an inspiration to me. In fact.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
Okay, Yash, a few questions I would like to ask you. How do you see the support from the overall ecosystem, from the schools, teachers, your co students in the class?
hmm.
Then we will talk about the support from the family.
All right. So, first of all, my school does support me quite a bit in terms of astrophotography and aerospace, of course. In fact, I'm planning to open a club in school, which is still in the progress, but once open, invites most of the people from school. So, in terms of school, it's great. And my friends, especially, they really love my work. I mean, there's sometimes where my friends come up to me and ask me if I've captured any new images or, discovered something new. And of course, I share it with them. And it's a really exciting part of this project.
I learned from your father that there is something called the Star Club. What is the Star Club, and how do you pull people for that? And how is the overall, the management of that Star Club? What all things you really enjoy throughout the night, and how it really helps other students also?
All right. So, Star Parties
Yeah, stuff
is,
like that.
Star Parties is an event. It's an informal name for an event where a group of like three or more astrophotographers, amateur astrophotographers, I should add, go to the outskirts of Hyderabad to capture images of deep sky objects. So it's actually really exciting because you have, of course, professionals around you. Considering my level, I have professionals around me who educate me time to time, even when I'm doing astrophotography on the field. And I just get to learn a lot more about astrophotography, the general, physics behind it, how to capture images better, because of course they have better telescopes, better cameras, and better equipment than me. So it's a learning experience plus an astrophotography experience, of course, and those are star parties.
So you spend your entire night there, or is it for 3 hours?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, we spend our entire night there. In fact, we start at around 4 because it takes a couple of hours to reach the destination since it's so far away. We spend the whole night until sunrise. From sunset to sunrise, we're capturing different objects, from time to time. And once the sun starts rising, we pack up and make our way back home, after which there's a lot of processing that needs to be done to the images to make them look good. Get the
Wonderful.
information out of them.
Yeah, really, really wonderful. Share few such spots in the country if you know.
Uh, I don't exactly remember the name of them at this moment.
Okay, so have you seen the movie Physics Wala? Something?
I have not.
Not. Okay. So the similar interest, he also went to somewhere on the mountain or somewhere where he saw entire
Mhm.
galaxy, and which is much of cleaner and the closer look. And then he
Uh,
fall in love with the physics and like this. That is why his things started. Wonderful. So I saw a couple of videos which you actually recorded and you actually took, and the entire calendar, right? Especially for the
mm,
year, where all the images and like this. So share
mm.
few things. How do you take those images? You take these images with the very high frequency kind of camera, or maybe the what is the role of telescope there? What are the instruments which you are
Mhm.
using especially for this?
All right, so let me start with the instruments first. You have your main tripod, which we call a mount, and the type of mount I use is equatorial, which means it opposes the rotation of the Earth to keep the object centered. And I have two types of telescopes. One is a red cat, the other is a Mac. And both of these are for two different kinds of astrophotography. One is for deep space objects, and the other is for planetary and solar or the lunar objects. So after the telescope, I have a camera meant for astrophotography. which I use with both telescopes, in fact. And that helps me capture the images overall. And one last part of it is the guide camera, which is put over the telescope in order to keep the object centered for deep sky imaging. And last but not the least, you have an ASI Air, which is used to control all the equipment. And of course, you need a power source. So those are the equipment. And as an example, for deep sky objects, I would use my Red Cat in that case to take images. And it's not just single shot images. Coming back to the mount, the equatorial mount that opposes the rotation of the Earth, that is required to image long exposure shots, which we call subs as a terminology. Uh, yeah, to capture subs and then save it for later. So once the subs are captured, you basically put them into a processing software. And as I said, these are not single clicks. These are over a minute to 5 minutes long for each image, and you have 60 of those, if not more. So those can be put into processing software to stack them, like basically put the images over each other to get the most information out of it. And then it needs another software which is required to process those images to get the details out of them, which is what becomes a final image. So that's the whole process of astrophotography.
Interesting. So, have you ever, showcased your work to any international forum or the national body per se?
Not the international forum or national body, but I've definitely posted my images on social media platforms such as Instagram, Reddit, and even Facebook a couple of times.
Interesting. Share something about I think the photograph or maybe the scenery which we can look back of you. Something it looks like it's
that. So yeah, so that's an image of an astronaut on a planet. I don't really know which planet that is, but it has the background, an astronaut, just depicting that we can go further. We can go further into space. We can explore more than we already have. That's mostly what it depicts.
Yeah. So who really inspires you, especially in the the astrology or maybe for this all this technology and all? Apart from Tesla owner,
Elon Musk. Yeah,
that
was
the one
aerospace.
or someone else. Yeah.
He is the one for rockets, I'd say, because back then in like 2015, it was amazing to see a rocket actually land back. Considering that previously the launch of the rockets was the most interesting part, when it comes to SpaceX and the Falcon 9, the landing becomes the most interesting because its reusability making the company more efficient. And in terms of physics and astrophotography, it was mostly my interest, I'd say, because I just fell in love with the skies after getting to know more about planes, aerospace, and moving into satellites, communication. That field just brought me to astronomy. After I knew more about astronomy, I went into astrophotography, which, of course, it was a lovely experience, I'd say.
Yeah, interesting. So, from the family side, your parents do not push you to complete your study and then go for your hobby or something. The important thing nowadays, we see students, they are unable to, take out time from their routine study and whatever they are doing to complete their examination and getting good marks. And they somewhere, I feel that the hobby, especially the maybe drawing, painting, design, or maybe the field which you are in, is left behind. What do you suggest in this?
Well, I wouldn't really say I'm pushed, but often from time to time, my parents just show what I'm doing, just showcase to me what I myself am doing. Of course, they give me reminders on certain tasks, and of course, they tell me to study. But with the schedule, I keep a balance of both, finishing off my hobbies, getting projects done while doing my studies and getting good marks.
What do you compromise in the trade-off of all this? Do you compromise your sleep? Do you compromise your chill out time or something, the resting time or something?
Well, for astrophotography, I definitely say sleep because you have to stay awake all night. And it's basically losing one night of sleep, meaning once you're back home from your astro party, you just have to take a good 7, 8 hours to get your rest and then get back on your feet to start processing images. When it comes to aerospace and my other interests, I don't really think there's anything of that sort, of a compromise, I'd say.
Wonderful. So share something what happens to you when you think about the space communication.
All right, so space communication for me was mostly related to satellites and how they communicate or relay information back to Earth. Considering those, pieces of technology are kilometers up there and still able to give us data in a matter of seconds, or rather transfer data back to us in a matter of seconds, was really intriguing for me. And going deeper into that, I discovered a satellite, or rather a set of three satellites called NOAA, which stands for National Oceanic and Weather Administration. So there are three satellites currently present of NOAA that are orbiting Earth in a polar orbit. And back home, I created a V dipole antenna uh, using a couple of aluminum rods and some wood. I created a V dipole antenna, which I was able to connect to my RTL SDR, which is a device that can receive radio waves. Both of them combined, I was in fact able to receive images directly from the NOAA satellites, and convert them into maps with cloud data. So my final result was basically an image with the map of India and cloud data, which is real time, faster than any weather service around.
Yeah.
So it was basically a mini weather station, homemade.
Yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting. Share something about that the flight tracking project and maybe the another one is the weather forecasting project which you did.
Mhm. So I'll continue with the weather forecasting project. So the V dipole antenna I created is meant to receive right-hand circularized polarized radio waves from the NOAA satellites, which it is able to push into the RTL SDR. And the frequency range of these satellites is around 137 to 138 megahertz. So receiving on this frequency at a certain time, which I have to check online, would give me a good signal from the satellites and would just give me a final image, and which is real time. So the technology is called Ep-52, which sends data, you know. So the camera on NOAA captures images line by line horizontally. So every second, a line of image is captured and it's sent over the frequency, which is usually 137.62 megahertz. It is usually sent over that frequency, which I can then receive using my equipment down here and decode it using an application called WX2 Image, which is weather to image. And after that, in a bit of post-processing, I can get a real-time result of how the clouds look all around India. And moving to my flight tracker, I use the same RTL SDR, which is used to receive radio waves, except the frequency that it's tuned to, or rather the frequency that it receives, is 1090 megahertz. And the technology is known as ADS-B. So flights that fly in and around my area with a 150 kilometer range, I'd say, transmit ADS-B information. And this is usually received by airports and other flight trackers. Like you have online apps such as FlightRadar24 and FlightAware, which give you this sort of data, positional data on planes and other, let's say, other flying machines, like helicopters, drones, etc. And what I've basically done is created a local version of that. So again, using the RTL SDR at 1090 megahertz, I am able to receive those radio waves directly from the plane decode them on device, and I use a Raspberry Pi for this. Decode them on device and get a web UI to see the information. That's basically how the flight tracker works.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing all those details. It seems like that I am not talking to a 10th or 11th or maybe the school kid. It seems like that I am talking to a scientist who did something, which is very interesting. Share something about, have you ever been, to the Indian Space ISRO or something, or NASA, or do you have any plan to visit such places?
Well, in fact, I have been to both. Back when I was, I think, 6 years old, me and three other friends had gone to ISRO, like, close to the launch pad, to witness the GSLV Mark III launch. So this was the second launch of that certain rocket which we witnessed, and it was another inspiration for me, getting me to know more about rockets, space, and just that field. And for NASA, I went to it was basically a field trip for a couple of weeks, which was hosted by my school back in Gurgaon. And my experience over there was amazing, in one word. I got to experience, being an astronaut in microgravity, launching in the SLS, in the Boeing Starliner. And I also got to know a lot more from the scientists over there, which was an awesome experience back then.
Interesting. How many hours you sleep?
Say about a good 7 to 8 hours. I do lose sleep sometimes,